liberation is within our grasp, so it's up to us to reach out and take it. In our thousands, in our millions. In our thousands, in our millions. In our thousands, in our millions. And across the world, in our millions, in our billions. Our first speaker is here today representing Stop the War, one of the co-organisers of today's rally. Please give a warm welcome to John Rees.
There was a moment in the conduct of the Vietnam War, after the Tet Offensive, when the nationally renowned newsreader Walter Cronkite went on American television and criticised American policy in Vietnam. On that night, the President of the United States, Lyndon Baines Johnson, said, "We've lost Cronkite, we've lost America." Well, now, Starmer has lost this country on the question of Palestine. Because the government statement, a statement by this country's government, France's government, Canada's government, that statement reads like a leaflet from the Palestine Coalition. Last week, last month, 19 has been a complete ideological collapse of our enemies in our direction. Things that they told us we would be arrested for saying only a few weeks ago, the government is now saying. Now we know it is not enough. Before this statement was issued, I knew that Starmer was a hypocrite. I knew that Lammy was a liar. And after this statement is issued, I still think that Starmer is a hypocrite and Lammy is a liar. And we demand that they turn those words into action. Stop arming Israel. Start boycotting Israel. It's not good enough just to haul the Israeli ambassador in and tell them off. We want them kicked out of the country. So never forget that you did this. They would not have said those words. They would not have had a complete collapse of their position unless we had stayed on the streets week after week, month after month, and year after year now in defense of Palestine. You did this. You did this. The question now is, can we do more? This movement has put millions on the streets, but there are still millions more in this country who agree with us, who haven't yet been on the streets. How do we get them there? Well, we start talking to them in language which appeals to them about things which are not necessarily about Palestine. And we say to them, they are linked to Palestine. If you want to protest about anything in this country, the right to protest is being defended by the Palestine movement, and no other movement is under attack in the way that the Palestine movement is over the right to protest. So if you care about the right to protest, come on the Palestine demonstrations. And on the 7th of June, we will be on the welfare not warfare block on the demonstration against austerity. And we need to go to those demonstrators and say that colonialism abroad always means attacks on working people at home. That war abroad means war on the NHS, war on the disabled, war on the poor, war on the pensioners. That's what we have to say, our cause. The Palestinian cause is the cause of every working person in this country, because their rights, their services, their jobs, their conditions, their trade union abilities, all are bound up with defeating this government on the issue of the age, the issue of Palestine. Stay strong, keep fighting, in the words of the late great Curtis Mayfield, keep on pushing, keep on pushing.
Thank you so much. All right, let's do a bit more chanting. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! All right, our next speaker is the amazing Liz McKean. She's the campaigns director of the anti-poverty and pro-Palestinian charity War on One. Please give her a very warm welcome.
Yet another harrowing week for Palestinians, 11 weeks of blockade on Gaza. Israel weaponising food, weaponising medical supplies, all the essentials for basic life. Yet more war crimes to add to the charge sheet for Netanyahu, already with an arrest warrant from the International Court. The UK is deeply complicit. Those in positions of power here still adamant at being a friend to a racist apartheid state that commits violation after violation with impunity. Finally this week, David Lammy called Israel's actions egregious, no doubt after feeling the intense public outrage, which is why we must keep up the pressure. Because Lammy's words came with a pathetic announcement that they will only suspend new trade talks with Israel. That means business as usual with the existing trade deal and nothing about the UK supply of arms. Netanyahu's message back this morning to the UK says that what we already knew. Words will not cut through to a government hell-bent on genocide. The UK should have stopped all relations, all trade, all arms exports to Israel a long time ago. UK trade with Israel, worth $7 billion a year, helped provide the resources for this genocide and occupation. UK high street banks like Barclays, financial underwriters, helping to power Israel's regime. It is complicity in action, and ministers will find themselves on the wrong side of history. Those supplying Israel with the arms and the means and shielding it from accountability will themselves have to account in both the court of public opinion and under international law as to why they actively supported, armed and shielded Israel during this genocide. The UK must end its complicity, must stop arming Israel, and we must continue fighting for what's right. We must keep up the pressure for that to happen, in solidarity with our Palestinian sisters and brothers. Thank you.
Free, free! Free, free! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! And from the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! Our next speaker is a Holocaust survivor who has been an outspoken opponent of Israel's occupation, apartheid and genocide of the Palestinian people. He was recently outrageously interviewed by the Metropolitan Police simply for taking part in our January demonstration. Please give the very warmest welcome to Stephen Kappas.
Thank you. Hi. Last night, in fact, I was talking to a pro-Palestinian Jewish group in Highgate, and afterwards we saw the film, the documentary film, How to Survive a War Zone. And this is a film which was shamefully pulled by the BBC for no good reason. But watching that film was incredibly painful. The main protagonists were children, and some of the children were of the same age as I was in 44, January 44, when the war between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany caught up with us. The front line practically moved through us, and so I saw the devastation that caused. And I was looking at the suffering of the Gazan children and adults, everybody. And I thought that actually this was, what they had to go through was worse than what we experienced. The devastation around me, the destruction, was a byproduct of two armies fighting. The destruction in Gaza is not a byproduct of two armies fighting. It is deliberate destruction. It is a element, a part of the ethnic cleansing. It's quite clear. And yeah. And some of the actions of actually bombing tents, with knowing that what that would cause, the burns that children have to suffer, adults and children, is incredibly painful to know about and to watch. The film was nearly unwatchable. And I was also watching David Lammy making his very pompous statement in the House of Commons. There is no comparison with it doesn't relate to or in any way alter the suffering that goes on in Gaza. It's completely of a different order. And his speech was just a pompous, empty statement, no action at all. So I think that we have to do everything we can by growing numbers to show that we reject all this, and we hope that eventually the Palestinian people will be free. There is no other. Quite simply, there is no other solution. Thank you. Free Palestine.
Free, free! 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 Our next speaker is a member of the National Executive Committee of Unison, the UK's largest trade union, representing over 1 million members. Please give a warm welcome to Liz Wheatley. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Solidarity to everyone who's come out again tonight. Only a few days after Saturday's magnificent demonstration. A demonstration that made it clear to the warmongers over there that we will not go away. And it was our movement that clearly forced Keir Starmer and David Lammy to finally speak up against the genocide in Gaza. But we know that words are not enough. And let's face it, we've heard words before from them. We heard the words from David Lammy in Parliament that turned out not to be true. The F-35 flights continued, the bombing continued, the genocide continues. So we need more than words, we need action. We need action from the politicians to end the arms trade. Action to stop trading with illegal settlements. Action to stop the bombing of hospitals. Action to break the siege, to get the food, water and medicines that are desperately needed into Gaza. But we also need to keep up our action. The march on Saturday was a huge boost for our movement. It was a public demonstration of our solidarity with the Palestinian people. But now we have to look at what else we can do. And boycott, divestment and sanctions are part of that. Because from the cotton mill workers who boycotted against slavery, to the Montgomery bus boycott in the US civil rights movement, boycott, divestment and sanctions have always been part of our fight. I work in a council and my pension fund is invested in arms, in oil and in occupation. But we have a campaign going in my union to get our pensions divested, and it's starting to happen. So far, 10 councils have now made commitments around divesting. But if 10 can do it, then 100 can do it, then 500 can do it. Because councils have divested from the fossil fuel industry. And of course they've divested from apartheid before, from apartheid South Africa. So they can divest from a genocidal apartheid system today. But we also need to do more and to protest at the arms factories on the 17th of June. Because those companies are making profits out of genocide. And that has to stop as well. Mass mobilisations there can shut them down and give workers the confidence to refuse as well. But I want to say just one more thing, finally one more thing. Because when Keir Starmer echoes Enoch Powell and says that we are an island of strangers, we have to say we are not. He has never been more wrong. Because we are a movement that stands up to racism and bigotry. An international movement and an internationalist movement. A movement that will stand for peace. A movement that will stand for justice. And a movement that will stand for a free Palestine! Free! Solidarity!
Woo-hoo! Free! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! In
is here representing the Muslim Association of Britain, who's one of the co-organisers of today's rally. Please give a really warm welcome to Yasmin Adam.
Brothers, sisters, friends, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. It's been 19 months of an unrelenting horror. 19 months of people being crushed under the weight of a military occupation, under a genocide that is implicit in Western complicity. 19 months since Gaza became a graveyard for thousands. Since families have been obliterated, since children have been torn, since names have been completely erased. Hospitals bombed, not by accident, but by design. Bakeries, schools, mosques, universities, all targets of a campaign of extermination. This is not a war. This is a genocide calculated, televised, and met with the silence of the so-called civilized world. 19 months of watching a nation bleed while the world looks away. And yet, in the face of this, our government's answer is vague promises of so-called concrete action in the nearby future. What kind of future are they waiting for? Is it a future where Gaza no longer exists on the map? Is it a future where the last Palestinian child in Gaza has died? Is it a future where the last refugee camp has turned into a mass grave? Because that's where we're heading. And it's not for the lack of awareness. It's not due to ignorance or confusion. And it's definitely not because they didn't know. It's because they chose to be complicit. They made a choice to prioritize political alliances, arms deals, and the language of diplomacy while turning a blind eye to mass atrocities. Earlier this week it was revealed that this government has approved more weapons to Israel in 3 months than the previous 3 years combined. These are weapons that bomb destroyed apartment blocks, bullets that shatter skulls, drones that kill children living in schools and hospitals out of shelter. This is not neutrality. This is not passive observation. This is active material support for the machinery of genocide. Every day our government delays meaningful action. Every day they hide behind vague commitments. The people of Gaza pay the price in blood. Children born into siege are now dying because of it. Survivors of one massacre are being buried by the next, and yet our government still sends weapons. We demand more than words. We demand an immediate, an urgent, and total arms embargo on Israel. We demand the end of British complicity, not in a future press release, but now. And until that happens, we are not stopping. Because we know that they are feeling the pressure. It's not the goodwill of David Lammy or Keir Starmer that we are seeing small concessions. It's because of the weight of our movement. Every restriction they pass, every attempt to silence us, every new law that they attempt to pass to silence our movement is proof that what we are doing is working. They are scrambling to contain something they can no longer control. But it's too late. We are part of the largest global movement of our time, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. So let us be absolutely clear. We are not here to settle or wait for their crumbs or symbolic gestures, because their small concessions and their small crumbs will never be the ceiling of our movement or the height of our demands, because our movement does not end or begin with their half measures or broken promises. We are here until we see the full liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. A day we know and a day they know we have never been closer to. So from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! One, we are the people. Two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. And Keir Starmer, you can't hide. Keir Starmer, you can't hide. Keir Starmer, you can't hide. And David Lammy, you can't hide. David Lammy, you can't hide. David Lammy, you can't hide. And John Healey, you can't hide. John Healey, you can't hide. John Healey, you can't hide. Free, free. Free, free. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. And from the sea to the river. From the sea to the river. From the sea to the river. Our next speaker is here today representing health workers for Palestine. He's a doctor who spent 2.5 months working in Gaza during this current genocide. Please give a very warm welcome to Dr. James Smith.
Thank you, folks. It's a real privilege to be back here again this evening. I returned from Amman today, where Israel continues to deny international healthcare workers from reaching Gaza in order to support our colleagues there. By continuing to resist the Zionist entity, we honor the 1,400 Palestinian healthcare workers killed as a result of Israeli aggression since October of 2023. We honor our 47 martyred colleagues in the Palestine Red Crescent Society. And we honor the 54,000 Palestinians killed by Israel in Gaza in the last 19 months. As we stand here today, Israel's onslaught in Gaza continues unabated. The last time I spoke at one of these rallies was the second week of September, over 8 months ago. At that time, the UK government had committed to cancelling fewer than 10% of its arms licenses with Israel. Shame. 8 months later, nothing has changed. Last week, the UK government committed to suspending trade talks with Israel and imposed sanctions on a small number of ultra-extremist settlers in the West Bank. Make no mistake, this is simply an admission of guilt. Why did the UK government initiate and then continue these trade negotiations last year at the height of the genocide? Why did the Labour government reaffirm its commitment to the trade talks in July of 2024? Why did it take so long for the UK government to impose sanctions on a small number of Zionist terror groups, the same people who have killed and displaced Palestinians in the West Bank for decades? At the same time, the UK government continues to call for humanitarian aid to Gaza. As a humanitarian worker, I attest, humanitarian aid does not stop a genocide. Flour and paracetamol is meaningless for as long as Israel continues to rain death and destruction on Gaza. You don't fix famine with food alone. You fix famine by going after those who seek to starve and kill. Only meaningful political action and disruptive acts of resistance can stop Israel's genocide. It is imperative that we do what our government has repeatedly refused to do. The direct actionists and trade unionists that continue to block the transfer of Israel's killing machines. The thousands of people, including healthcare workers, that have blockaded the factories operated by the genocide-enabling Elbit systems. No more liberal platitudes. We must dismantle the genocide enablement apparatus until Palestine is free of this tyranny. End the genocide, freedom for Palestine. Thank you.
Free, free! 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 In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! And from the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! From the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Woo-hoo! Thank you so much, everyone, for turning out. Our next speaker is here representing the Palestinian Forum in Britain, who are one of the co-organisers of today's rally. Please give a really warm welcome to Serene El-Hamami. Thank you so much.
Good evening. On behalf of the Palestinian Forum in Britain, PFB, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. We are gathered here today to refer our commitment to defending the people of the Palestine who are currently experiencing genocide. The situation in Gaza has reached catastrophic levels. Children and infants are dying from starvation and disease after surviving relentless bombardment. The world is watching this genocide unfold with alarming indifference. We have all seen the horrific images in the media. Bodies scattered by killing and parents collecting the remains of their children in bags. These are unbearable sins. If such atrocities were happening elsewhere, the international response would be different. Why? Because Western foreign policy is rooted in racism and double standard, applying human rights selectively with a colonial framework. We are deeply dismayed by the British government's complicity in this genocide from the outset, providing weapons to the Zionist entity for 19 months. Refusing to acknowledge the genocide and shielding Israel diplomatically in the UN Security Council and the European Union. Failure to enforce a ceasefire and continue supported for Israel military campaign constitute crimes under immense pressure from the British people who marched in their hundreds of thousands day after day across cities nationwide. The government finally issued a condemnation. However, this condemnation lacks substance. It is meaningless without meaningful action. While words have been spoken, the UK continues to export weapons that enable atrocities. This is the height of hypocrisy and moral failure. We demand that the British government align its action with its words. It must immediately halt arms exports to Israel and take a moral stance in line with that on the British public who reject genocide and demand freedom for Palestine from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Thank you so much.
From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. And from the sea to the river. From the sea to the river. From the sea to the river. And in our thousands, in our millions. 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 Our next speaker is a journalist who refused to be silent, like most of his colleagues, who detailed Israel's genocide from called out the complicity of our media. Please give a warm welcome to Owen Jones.
19 months. Imagine sitting through 19 months of genocidal depravity, of the worst possible crimes that can be committed against humans. Babies being cooked alive and suffocated under rubble. Children being sniper shotted in the head and the chest. Homes, libraries, mosques, churches, hospitals being wiped from the face of the earth. Over 1,000 medics liquidated. Intentional starvation. Men raped to death. The worst possible crime. Imagine sitting through all of that and taking 19 months to see anything. And that is what the shameless facilitators of this genocide in Downing Street have done. And they think that will wipe away their complicity. But it won't, because we have to say loud and clear, this ends with those people behind bars for facilitating genocide. And look what they say now. Listen to them. Oh, it's intolerable, they say. It's intolerable how they weep now as they still keep arming Israel and giving the crucial components for the F-35 jets to rain death and destruction. But let's be generous. But he did take a stand because David Lammy got his deputy to give Zippy Hotiveli, the Israeli ambassador, a dressing down until they're quaking in their boots in Tel Aviv. The fact is, this is still platitudes and empty words and empty deeds. This government is still facilitating genocide, and we will not stop marching and protesting until they stop and we lock them up. But I want to say something.
I want to say something else. Because we mentioned my esteemed colleagues in the British media, my esteemed, respected colleagues in the British media, I just want to say this to those, not those who actively still cheer on this genocide, who should just be considered depraved sociopaths. No, I'm talking about the people who still remain silent, apart from empty platitudes. What is going through your head right now? I think you're becoming increasingly aware that this is one of the great crimes of our age, and maybe you just think you could vanish and disappear into the background and no one will notice what you failed to do. But let's be clear about the silence. Throughout history, every crime, every atrocity, every abomination was made possible by you. You are complicit in genocide because if you have power and influence and your government is facilitating genocide and you remain silent, you are complicit in that genocide. And do you know what? Maybe let's get into their heads a bit. Let's get into their heads. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're scared they'll get smeared and their platforms will be menaced and their careers will be threatened. These aren't irrational fears. But you know what? Palestinian journalists didn't want to stand up and have to document the genocide of their own people, and they risked their lives every single day to do so and suffered the biggest extermination of journalists in human history. If they have the courage to stand up, what excuse do those in countries like this have not to stand up against genocide? There will be a reckoning. There will be a reckoning. And that's what I'm going to end by saying. We are going to keep marching until every bomb, every component of those F-35 jets, we stop those sales and we impose total sanctions and turn Israel, a genocidal state, into a pariah state. We will keep marching. But we have to say this finally. We have to say this finally. There is going to be a reckoning. I say this because I think many of us think they'll get away with it. We remember Iraq. They got away with it that time. The politicians, the media commentators, the only people who had to resign, whose careers suffered, were the people who were criticising and opposing the Iraq war. And if there was a reckoning over Iraq, this catastrophe would never have been possible. This time has to be different. This time has to be different. We have to say, we have to believe that politicians will go to jail. We have to believe that the careers of journalists who choose this on will end. Because if we don't believe that, then this crime will happen over and over and over again. A reckoning is coming, and we say directly to you, if you facilitated genocide, if you're complicit in genocide, you've committed the worst possible crime. Cowardice as well is always a sin in the face of injustice, in the face of genocide. It is a moral crime. A reckoning is coming, and we will end the careers of the complicit, and we will send politicians to jail, and this is the end. This is the reckoning for those who believe they can commit and be complicit in war crimes with impunity. Let's stand together, let's fight together, from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free.
Woo! Thank you so much, Owen. Now, I've just been told that with only 24 hours notice, 7,000 of you have turned out tonight. This is incredible to see at such short notice, and really speaks to the fact that this is the strongest, most sustained movement of people power in British political history. So incredible work, everyone. Let's keep it going, because we know that one day we will win. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! From the river to the sea! 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 From the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! Free, free! Free, free! Lammy, you can't hide. David Lammy, you can't hide. And John Healy, you can't hide. We trot you in. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. All right, our next speaker really needs no introduction. He's a lifelong friend to the Palestinian people and defender of human rights. He's the independent MP for Islington North, and he's the People's Prime Minister. Please give a very warm welcome to Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you. Thank you all, and thank you, Owen, for the speech you just made, and thank you for all the work, the writing, and the media you've managed to encourage to bring about peace, bring about justice, and bring about respect for the Palestinian people. Thank you, Owen, for all that you've done. And thank you, everyone, for being here today, and this wonderful coalition of people that come together from Stop the War, CND, Palestine Solidarity, and so many more groups to ensure these demonstrations happen and take place. And as you've just been told, there's at least 7,000 of us here tonight at very short notice giving a message to our government. I've just come a few minutes ago from Brockwell Park, where the Wide Awake Festival is on, and there are tens of thousands of people there. And I was invited onto the stage to speak about the need to raise money to give support to the people of Gaza and why we should be supporting the people of Palestine. All those that were at the music festival fully understood the role of festivals, the role of music in mobilising people to understand their voice matters, solidarity matters, and you won't achieve it by staying home and playing with your computer. You will only achieve it by going out and mobilising people alongside you. And this week, the government made some slight changes to its policy, in that they said they were suspending the trade talks with Israel, and they said they were suspending arms supplies to Israel. But, and this is a very big but, through Progressive International, we produced a report showing that since the suspension of the 30 arms licenses some time ago, the supply of weapons to Israel actually went up, not down, under the other licenses. And so I want them to be open and transparent about this. If we are ending all arms supplies to Israel, then show us the evidence that none are going. Show us the evidence that the Royal Air Force Base at Secretary in Cyprus is not being used for the delivery of weapons to Israel, and the overflying of Gaza is not being used to convey intelligence back to the IDF to make it easier for them to bomb hospitals, bomb schools, and bomb people's homes. We need some transparency here. And of course, the whole Israeli approach to Gaza and increasingly to the West Bank is made possible because of their obvious enormous military capability, but also the use of the F-35 jet. 15% of the components of those planes are made here in Britain. It could not fly without parts that are made in this country. And so when many of us in Parliament and elsewhere have called for the suspension of the supply of parts to Israel, they said, well, we're not supplying them directly to Israel. And here's the thing, that's just a sleight of hand, because under pressure, they admitted that the parts made in Britain were supplied into a global supply chain, and yes, they end up in Israel in those jets that are bombing schools and people's homes and hospitals in Gaza. It is a disgrace. And so, support those people that are demonstrating to end the manufacture and supply. And I was in Sheffield last weekend, big demonstrations going on outside the factories in Meadowhall that make the parts for the F-35 jets.
Let's support all those people that are telling us the truth about the F-35 jets. But we need a bit more transparency than that here. And so on June the 4th, 2 days after Parliament returns after the short recess that's taking place next week, I've got a private member's bill I'm putting up to Parliament on June the 4th, which is called the Gaza Inquiry Bill. I'm calling for an independent public inquiry into the policy development and the supply of weapons to Israel that has brought about the destruction of life in Gaza and increasingly on the West Bank. Those of us, and many here, were also involved in all the campaign against the Iraq war, eventually managed to force the government to introduce the Chilcot inquiry. I want something as strong as that, but with more teeth than the Chilcot inquiry had. So that those people have been deceiving us about weapons supplies, those people that have been involved in this secret carnage, which has taken the lives of 60,000 Palestinians, will be brought to account. And that we are determined to do. The last thing I want to say is this. We've all been on many demonstrations. We've had 27, I think it is, national demonstrations, and we'll be having plenty more. We ain't disappearing, we ain't going away. We're here for the long haul, however long that haul is. We've made an enormous difference. You have made an enormous difference to the politics, the understanding, and the discussion about the rights and the respect that should be given to all Palestinian people. And it's a global movement that's having massive effect in many places. The media won't tell you this, but the increasing support for Palestine is because of these demonstrations. And it's having an effect all across Europe. And I say to our friends in the United States, those older people that campaigned against the Vietnam War, those that campaigned against the Iraq War, the much older people that campaigned against the racism of the southern states in the 1950s and 1960s. There is that radical tradition in the United States that does stand up for civil liberties, that does stand up for peace, that does stand up in solidarity with other people. And so I recognise what their government is doing, of course I do. I recognise the whole way in which most of the US media has gone. But let's not allow our friends in the USA who are campaigning for peace, for justice, for the Palestinian people, give them our support, give them our solidarity, and give them our cooperation for the future. So tonight we're here outside the Ministry of Defence and outside the Prime Minister's office, and there's some very strange philosophy going on these days. Somebody over there believes that Britain is in danger of becoming a nation of strangers. I don't see any strangers in front of me here. I see a multilingual, multi-ethnic, multicultural unity of people. Unity of people for peace, unity of people for justice, unity of people for a sustainable world, not a world of war, not a world of greed. Thank you for all you do.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Our next speaker is here today representing the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, one of the co-organisers of today's rally. Please give the warmest welcome to General Secretary of the CND, Sophie Ball.
Thanks so much. It's so incredible to see so many of you, 7,000 of you. And just a few days ago, we had over 50,000 people on the streets. This movement is only growing and growing in power. So, after 19 months of Israel's genocidal slaughter of Palestinians, of the total destruction of Gaza and its healthcare system, the forcible removal of over 2 million people into disease-ridden refugee camps, And now, 3 months into a systematic starvation of the population, and after 19 months of Keir Starmer spouting Israel has the right to defend itself, now, only now, does he condemn Israel. So it is hard to say that we welcome his words, because for these words to have any meaning at all, Sammy and Starmer and Lammy, I think I prefer the other version, they now actually have to do things, don't they? They have to back up these words with action. Suspending trade talks with Israel is not taking action. Having a meeting with the Israeli ambassador, that is not taking action. Lammy and Starmer have got to, once and for all, end Britain's arms sales to Israel. Because it's an absolute height of cruel hypocrisy to wring their hands and condemn Israel's breach of international humanitarian law, whilst Britain continues to sell parts of F-35A fighter jets to Israel so it can kill and maim Palestinians. Whilst it continues the surveillance flights from Cyprus, providing Israel with the coordinates so it can slaughter civilians in refugee camps and so-called safe zones. And whilst it continues to supply parts for Israel's deadly nuclear submarines. Words won't help this government wash away the blood from its hands. So we are here to call for this government to end these arms sales to Israel, a demand we have made unequivocally and without pause since the beginning of Israel's genocidal onslaught, because this is the only way for this government to end its complicity. And it's absolutely central to halting the wider conflict which threatens the entire region, risking hundreds of thousands of more lives. Because while Israel is starving children in Gaza, this nuclear-armed state is also making military preparations to bomb Iran. This nuclear-armed state has to be stopped because it threatens us all. So we call on Lammy and Starmer to end their nuclear hypocrisy, to stop arming Israel to the hilt while supporting the crippling sanctions on the Iranian people. We must seize this moment. We must seize this moment to force this terrible government to do the right thing, to end all arms sales to Israel. And our power is only growing. It's only growing. So we must keep up the pressure and we will win. Free, free! Free, free! Solidarity!
Woo! Thank you so much. Free, free! 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 In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! One!
student activist who's speaking today from ASAP. Please give a very warm welcome to Noor.
Assalamu alaikum. On Tuesday, the British government announced that it would suspend trade negotiations with Israel. But on that very same day, while David Lammy performed concern for the cameras, British fly planes were flying over Gaza, sharing intelligence with Israel as it continues to bomb, starve, and massacre Palestinians. Let me be perfectly clear. This is not a breakthrough. It is not a shift in policy. It is a lie. For over 19 months of this genocide, the UK have played the same cynical game, manufacturing so-called crises where they pretend to pressure Israel while continuing to arm it. Shame. This is a strategy designed to deflate the momentum we have built in these streets and to distract from our demands. The government is hoping we don't notice that when they claim to have restricted arms exports to Israel, they lied. Shame. They're hoping we don't notice that in 3 months, Labour approved more arms to Israel than the Tories did in 3 years. Shame! That UK made parts for F-35 jets, the same jets dropping 2,000-pound bombs on our children's heads in Gaza, are still being shipped from the UK. Shame! Because here's the truth. Israel cannot exist without Western support. If the UK truly opposed these crimes, the bombs will stop falling tomorrow. So no, we do not celebrate David Lammy's PR stunt. We won't allow them to buy more time for this genocide. Because when a state arms the genocide, when it fuels it with lies, that state is not a bystander, that state is a facilitator of war crimes. Palestine is not a PR crisis, and Gaza does not need your carefully worded concern. Gaza needs action now. And while the government lies, others act. Right now, protesters from Pal Action sit behind bars. Their crime was taking action to stop the shipment of weapons from the UK. They sacrificed everything on the line. Their degrees, their freedom, their safety, and their comfort. They climbed factory roofs, chained themselves to gates, disrupted the flow of deadly arms. And for that, the UK government chose to imprison them. Shame! Instead of punishing war criminals, this government punishes those who try to stop them. Shame! So today, we honor these protesters. We thank them for their courage and their unwavering commitment to justice and liberation. They did what the government... They did what the government refuses to do. They stood on the side of humanity. And we will raise our voices louder on their behalf, and we will not rest until they are free and until all our political prisoners are free. Meanwhile, our universities invest in these very same companies. They hand contracts to Elbit and BAE Systems, arms manufacturers profiting from the destruction of Palestinian life. They have turned our campuses into sites of repression, punishing students who dare to speak up with disciplinary actions and suspensions. Shame! There is no neutrality in genocide. And our universities that continue to fund and invest in these arms companies are all complicit in war crimes. So to the students, more than ever, we need to escalate, organize, occupy, disrupt. From our university campuses to the streets, our demand is the same. Cut the ties, end the contract, disclose, divest. Our message to Keir Starmer and David Lammy. We see through every statement, every theatric, every delay. You can't wash the blood off your hands while you allow Gaza to be starved and burned in real time. And finally, a message to the people. If governments are even whispering the word sanctions now, it's because of us. Because our protests are working. Our pressure is working. But we can't stop now, because they're still arming, still trading, still lying, and still killing our people. We demand an immediate total arms embargo on the Zionist settler state today. We will not applaud meaningless gestures. We will not stop until this government ends its complicity, until the siege on Gaza lifts, until the occupation ends, until every inch of Palestine is free from the river to the sea. Thank you.
Free, free! Free, free! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! Our final speaker of today's rally is the director of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, one of the co-organisers of today's demonstration. Please give a warm welcome to Ben Jamal.
Thank you, friends. I want to thank you for coming out once again. 7,000 strong at 24 hours notice. Friends, words are not enough. Words are not enough. On Tuesday of this week, David Lammy did something unusual. He said some things that were true. He described Israel's blockade as intolerable. He said it is morally wrong, unjustifiable, that it needs to stop. He described Israel's plans to ethnically cleanse every Palestinian from Gaza as repellent and monstrous. So in doing that, you know, he was simply saying what has been clear to every reputable human rights organisation, every reputable lawyer, and the millions in Britain, the millions of you who have taken to the streets in massive demonstrations for 20 months, that Israel is engaged in a genocide and right now is using starvation as a weapon of war. And you all know, and I know, that his words did not go far enough. He still refuses to use the word genocide, even as he describes actions that meet every letter of the definition of genocide. But even if he had moved further, even if he had finally uttered that word, it is not enough. Within hours of him calling Israel's actions monstrous and repellent, a UK spy plane took off from Al-Takriti base in Cyprus to fly over Gaza to collect intelligence for the IDF for them to better target their bombs upon Palestinian people. Britain is not just complicit in this genocide, it is an active participant and remains so even as its ministers are forced to accept that what they are participating in is monstrous, is repellent, is morally wrong and is unjustifiable. Shame upon them. Remember last week, the government, in order to justify the continued shipment of F-35 parts to Israel, sent its lawyers into court to make the grotesque argument that maintaining the confidence of the United States, whose president is currently proposing the removal of all Palestinians from Gaza, is more important than upholding international law and obeying its own regulations on the export of arms. Shame upon them. But friends, whilst we will continue to demand meaningful action, do not underestimate the importance of what is happening across the political establishment right now in front of all of our eyes. What is happening is that the fabric of justification that has allowed them to normalise genocide is wearing thin and is being torn apart. when even Tory MPs are saying they can no longer support Israel, when the former head of the Joint Intelligence Committee is calling for a full arms embargo on Israel, and wider than here in the UK, when the Prime Minister of Slovenia is standing up in the European Parliament calling for an end to all normal trade with Israel and receives a standing ovation from that Parliament, then we know Israel is becoming isolated on the global stage. And we know there are two reasons for this. One is that the reality that we in this movement and the Palestinian people have asserted for decades that Israel is a settler colonial state founded upon a racist ideology of Jewish supremacy that led to the establishment of a regime across all of historic Palestine, from the river to the sea, where one people have rights and another none at all. That reality is now impossible to hide as colonisation and apartheid descend into the monstrous horror of a live stream genocide. You cannot cling to the falsehood that Israel is a liberal democracy that commits acts of violence only to defend itself, when in front of the world it cuts off food and water to entire population. You cannot call a state a normal liberal democracy when it is content for 70,000 children aged between 1 month and 2 years to be treated for malnutrition, many of them driven blind by their lack of access to food. And you cannot hide that reality when the ministers of Israel's government are openly declaring they will now move to destroy everything that is left in Gaza. But the second reason for the cracks appearing in the political establishment is the body of pressure that we, the community of resistance, have built through our mobilisations, through our actions to end all British complicity. That is why the government is now adopting the language it used this week. That is why this week we saw the members of the co-op vote overwhelmingly for their supermarket to stop selling Israeli goods. That is why this week King's College, Cambridge became the latest to fully divest from all complicit companies. That is why in the past 2 weeks we have seen Barclays Bank and Palantir dropped from SFX Festival in London. We salute every activist who campaigned for those victories. So friends, our movement can only get stronger and needs to only get stronger. We will continue to press on the government our demands for an end to all trade with Israel that violates the rights of the Palestinians, and for the imposition of a full two-way arms embargo. We will continue to demand that every public body, local councils, universities divest. We will continue to call upon every supermarket and every store to cease the sale of Israeli goods. We are not going anywhere. We are planning right now, and we'll announce it soon, watch your social media next week, a mass action at Parliament. On June the 17th, we will be outside arms factories across the country. Look at our social media for the details and join us. And on June the 21st, we will be back again in our hundreds of thousands, demanding that finally the government ends all of its complicity. We do not stop We do not stop until the genocide is ended, until the entire system of apartheid is dismantled and ground into the dust of history, until the Palestinian people from the river to the sea are finally free. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. See you back again here soon.